When the Romans burst onto the military scene in the Mediterranean, warfare for a long time had been dominated by different types of spearmen, either using it two-handed as a pike or with a shield armed like the hoplite. Now, we must mention, of course, that to begin with, the Romans were doing exactly the same thing. They were using hoplite swords, the xiphos, and they were using pretty much hoplite shields and hoplite tactics. But as time went on, they learned how to defeat their enemies using long spears. Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria, and Lucy Easton is assisting me today because I need another pair of hands, so she's kindly obliged. Right, so we're going to look very simply. This is a very simple concept, looking at how we overcome long pole arms, particularly pikes and spears in this situation. So first of all, Lucy, if you come towards me and you hold that in two hands as a pike. So hold it back towards keep hold of it, there we go. Other hand up here, good. So the big advantage of the pike is obviously reach. It means you can fend off cavalry using lances, you can keep your opponents at long reach. If you've got longer spears or longer pikes than the enemy, then you can stab them before they can stab you. But because it is a long lever, we can manipulate the end of it relatively easily. So as you can see, I positioned Lucy with the pike forwards in a pretty much standard position as most people would hold a pike, usually left hand forward. This is obviously a two-handed pike at this point. We'll look at spear and shield in a second. And I have got a pilum. Now, most of you would think of a pilum as a throwing implement, and of course it predominantly is, but it is also a stick. And there are some vague references to these potentially being used in hand-to-hand combat, but I'm going to demonstrate how you can quite easily deal with a long pike with something like this. Now the problem is if I just try to poke Lucy from here, she can poke me much sooner than I can poke her because she's got a much longer reach. So instead I need to close in. Well, I can close in by pushing it that way or that way. Actually, it's weaker for her if I push that way than this way, because if I push that way, she's got her body behind it. Okay, so it's better for me to close on that side. So using my stick, essentially, in this case a pilum, you can use it vertically, you can use it one-handed, okay? Or you could use it two-handed. I'll demonstrate one-handed to begin with. So say, for example, I have a gladius in my other hand here. If I cross the pike there and I immediately close in, very clearly at that distance, Lucy's in a lot of trouble. Let's show that from the side. So showing that from the side, if I've got my pilum in one hand and my gladius in the other one, if I come into a distance whereby I've formed a cross either that way or that way, then I immediately charge in, and at that distance, the pikeman, or in this case Lucy, doesn't have an awful lot to do because of it being such a long and unwieldy weapon. However, generally on the battlefield, using a gladius and a pilum together are not a thing because of missile weapons. Instead, I normally have a shield. So first of all, we start with a generic boss gripped circular shield. You might think this is a Viking shield, but these kind of shields were used by lots of people for a very long time. And it's the same principle. Clearly, I can close off the pike that way, or I can close off the pike that way. Closing it that way is advantageous for two reasons. One, because she's weaker in that direction. Two, because my other weapon is on this side. So if the pike is on line here, she's stabby at me, I've got my shield in front, I'm not just blocking it, I'm aiming to deflect it off to the side and immediately charge in to attack the opponent. So it's about deflecting the point off to the side and closing distance as quickly as possible. Now, one of the problems doing this with smaller shields, and you might think this is pretty big, but actually relative to the pike's leverage and angulation, it's actually fairly small, because if you look at it, it at any one time can only really cover my upper half or potentially my lower half. So the danger is always going to be, facing this type of spear or pike, is that if a person thrusts over, I'm going to have to raise my shield there. I could potentially use the sword, but I don't really want to. I raise it there, and now she could come underneath by coming around and stab me in the crotch, which I don't want. So I've always got this problem. It's no problem left to right, but I've always got this problem of it coming over the top of the shield or coming below the shield as I come in. Okay, so You will know what's coming now. The Romans came up with a really good solution to this problem. And of course the answer is the massive scutum, because this enables us to cover high and low lines, if not necessarily from head to foot. We'll talk about this on my head in a second. There's a good reason why I'm wearing it, not just for dramatic effect, but it covers as much of us pretty much as we can do. But more importantly, it can also cover fully around the sides as well. Not all scuta are as curved as this, but this means that it covers the outside, the inside, pretty much up to my face and down to about my mid calf. I'll just move back so you can see. So it covers a lot of me. And moreover, if we look at the design of the culus or helmet, we can put it right the way down here and pretty much peak just over the top of the shield. If something comes in, we don't need to raise the shield. We can actually just put the brim down, and notice we have these brims on here, which obviously protect against cuts, but they also provide a degree of protection against shield smashing your nose in as well. Nasals are another option, but anyway. So, by having the peeking over the shield strategy here, we've completely covered ourselves except for really down low. We'll look at that in a second, which means that in a very casual way, if I completely cover and close myself up like this, and even if I can hide behind the shield here, I can pretty much walk straight in on the pike or spear opponent, and obviously then use my gladius on them. I'm saving it for that. Now, theoretically, I could also use the gladius for manipulating the pike or spear, and I'm sure that was done sometimes, but primarily that's what the scutum is here to do. But what if she goes for your leg, I hear you call? Well, that is actually not a big problem. First of all, in a worst case scenario, I get stabbed in the leg while I'm closing in. I'll probably survive that, and my gladius will be going for a chest or a head or something like that. But if we're actually seeing and a person comes down low down here to go underneath the shield, you've got a couple of options. One is to stamp on the end of the spear. This is done in medieval and Renaissance treatises. We know it's historical. We don't know if the Romans did it, but it seems reasonable. But there's another option because of the nature of this shield. If we're here, if you bring the pike back up again, Lucy, good. As I see it dropped down, what I can do as it goes down low down to there is I can actually jam the bottom of my shield right onto it, and that makes it even easier to stand on while I run in and attack with my gladius. Finally, versus the classic hoplite, that is with a one-handed spear usually held overarm and a circular shield. Well, in this case, the principle is exactly the same. The danger is this could be thrown at any moment. So bear in mind that could be lobbed at my head. If it gets lobbed at my legs, it's probably not going to stop me closing in. But it is also easier to manipulate because it's now only in one hand, okay? Lucy's struggling to keep it pointing towards me, because it's such a long lever, with a minimum amount of force, I can knock the point offline. So, slight difference now, because I'm less worried about my legs, especially because the spear is up high, but also because it's one-handed. I'm more concerned about it being thrown. Instead of holding the scutum at chin level or face level, I'm probably going to hold it higher and charge in from here. So if I see an opponent with their spear raised up, potentially ready to throw, I'm more likely to bring the scutum up high up here and immediately close in and come into gladius range. And remember, at the range of the gladius, the spear is at a huge disadvantage. So I'm sure many of you already knew a lot of this, but hopefully it puts it in a slightly clearer format. Maybe some of you didn't know. Get commenting down below, let us know, did you realise all of these things? Are there other things that I could throw into this and expand on maybe? Because this is a fairly complex topic that I've just given a quick cursory look at. The scutum is part of a system that goes with the short sword and with the helmet. All of these three things together work incredibly effectively. It wouldn't work as well with a longer sword, it wouldn't work as well without a helmet, and it wouldn't work as well with a smaller shield. So the three things really work together particularly well against enemies, spear people or pikemen. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I have been Matt Easton and will of course continue to be. Cheers folks.
Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers folks.